Hello, my name is Fini Ongole. Today I'll reflect on the question, what does it mean to lead? We will start with the letter L in the word lead. And the letter L is a representation of love. You know, someone said, people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. This is very true because it describes how much someone in a given leadership position can know so much about that position and yet know so little about those he is actually leading. You are so full of the position and having so little knowledge of the people. And it explains the irony where we have so many leaders but very little leadership happening. And so the question of leadership starts with the question of loving. It is first a question of influence. How am I influencing first those that I have been called to lead, and not just being influenced by my position, but rather influencing those I have been called to lead. And I want us to look at a passage in the Bible that describes the kind of influence that God has called us to have. Together, let's read Luke chapter 10 from verse 25 to 37. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine on him. Then he put the man on his donkey, brought him into an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I'll reimburse you for any extra expenses you may have. Passage, we reflect on 3 people: a priest, a Levite, and a Samaritan. Of these 3, it's only the Samaritan who reached out and helped the gentleman who was in need, who had been beaten by the robbers and left in need. You know, this passage reminds us of what love is and what love does. Love crosses borders. Love answers the question, who my neighbor is. My neighbor is the one in need. Jesus is teaching us that our neighbors are not necessarily those whom we share a religious belief with. Jesus is teaching us that my neighbor is not necessarily the one with the same interests as I have. Jesus is teaching us that my neighbor is not necessarily the one I like. No. Otherwise, the priest would have been right to leave this needy man because they didn't share a religious belief. The Levite would have been right to leave this man in need because they didn't share ethnicity. Jesus is telling us that what love does is that love looks beyond our differences. Love looks beyond ethnic difference. Love looks beyond religious difference and comes to you at your place of need. And this is true because love answers the question of need. It just doesn't deal with likes and interests. It deals with disagreements and dislikes as well. Only love will say, we may be different in color, we may be different in personality, we may be different in our ethnicity, we may be different in our religious beliefs, but we are equal in value. And therefore, my neighbor is deserving of the same dignity as that which I desire for myself. That is what love does. So love says we are all deserving of dignity. The very first human right was not given by a human rights commission. It was given by God Himself. And that's why in the Christian world view, we believe that God's mission statement starts with, for God so loved. And let me just say that. It starts with, for God so loved the world. And it continues, For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. You know, a mission statement answers three questions. It answers the question of how. How will this happen? It answers the question why. Why is this being done? And it answers the question what. What do you intend to accomplish? And in that mission statement of God the Father, we see those three questions answered. For God so loved the world. Whatever God does, it's because of love. So that answers the question why. Why does God do what he does? Because he so loved the world. And how does he express this love? And we want to answer the method. How? For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. And that is how he expresses his love. He gave his one and only Son. So that what? We want to answer the question what in the mission statement of God the Father. Remember, the mission statement answers why. And in answering why, we see it is because of love. And it answers the question how. And how is the method, which we see it was by God giving his one and only Son, Jesus Christ. And why? Why did he do this? That all men may be saved. That all men may be saved. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. That is what it means to be saved, that you will not perish, but have everlasting life. And so, question of leadership. In answering the question, what does it mean to lead? We'll look at the letter L, we'll look at the letter E, we'll look at the letter A, and we'll look at the letter D. Today, we have looked at the letter L in the word lead, which is a representation of love. We start by loving those God has called us to lead. And when we start by loving, the rest will follow. I want to remind us to subscribe and watch out for letter E, letter A, and letter D in this series of what does it mean to lead. I'll see you next time as we answer letter E. God bless you as you reflect on loving your neighbor as you love yourself.